Hey, if you just stumbled across this, my name is Bradley, and I am a producer and a solo artist, and I'm here to talk about recording your own vocals. I've been recording my own vocals for my whole career. A lot of my clients that I work with remotely will have a lot of the same questions about recording vocals, so I'm basically going to lay out all the information I've gotten from experience and different sources and just give you basically everything I know about recording your own vocals at home. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to keep your microphone away from the walls and keep it closer to the middle of the room, but not exactly in the middle of the room, because there is some weird acoustic stuff that can happen in certain rooms when you're dead in the center. Maybe all rooms. I'm not an acoustic scientist, but just a little bit off from center and you should be good. Now, if you do have acoustic treatment like that, you're gonna want to prioritize having it directly behind you. Now, this mic is kind of sideways so you can see it, but the back of the microphone that you're not singing into is going to reject noise. So you're going to be facing the mic and you're going to want your acoustic treatment, if any, directly behind you to maximize how much of the echo is going to cut out. And if you don't have any acoustic treatment, consider hanging a blanket. And if your room is just too echoey and you can't hang a bunch of blankets, consider using a dynamic mic like this SM58 that's super common, or the SM7B, or just any dynamic mic will cut out a lot of that echo. So you're going to want to have your microphone around the level of your nose so that you tilt up a little bit when you sing into it. Not so much that you put tension on your vocal cords, but it's going to make sure that you're not crushing down and kind of messing with your ability to sing out your notes. The best distance I've found is having about 4 fingers between the pop filter and the mic, and then being between another 4 fingers from the pop filter. And if you really want to get intimate, getting right up to it, but you definitely never want to go past that. I do see a lot of people who put their pop filters too close, and you want to remember that pop filter is there to disturb the air before it hits the mic and makes a booming noise. So you want to give it enough distance to cut that air down. If it's too close, not going to be enough room for that to happen. And you can play with the proximity to get more bass, but again, I wouldn't go closer than that. With a dynamic mic, it's going to be different. You probably only want to have like a couple fingers away, basically like almost touching it, but not quite. And because these mics are less sensitive, especially to noises farther away, which is good for cutting out noise, but it means you're going to want to be singing closer to them. And if you run into a lot of pops with a mic like this, the SM58, you can get some foam to put over top of it, or set it up like this and have a real pop filter. Another thing to note about dynamic microphones is because you're going to be singing closer to them, there's going to be more proximity, there's going to be more bass, and they're going to need more EQ to make them sound natural, because there will be a lot of boominess. And that's kind of outside the scope of this video, but it is something to keep in mind if you're going to go down the route of using one of these. And one thing to remember about if you're really close to a condenser microphone, or really any microphone, your moves far and back are going to have a way more pronounced effect on how much bass is in the recording. So if you find it hard to stay a consistent distance, try and be farther away, because your moves will make less of a difference. Proximity really kicks in more the closer you are. You're going to want your gain peaking around -12 or so on the meter. And what I would usually do beyond that is I usually find what I think the loudest note I'm reasonably going to sing is, and then maybe even sing a little louder than that. I'm not going to do it now and blow your ears, but doing like a hey kind of thing. Again, a little bit louder than you maybe think you'll ever go in the whole song. And make sure that's not clipping. And if that's not clipping, you're good to go. And I basically can just leave my gain at the same spot at this point, because I just know how loud I'm gonna sing. But if you don't, make sure you're not clipping on your loudest notes. You should be good. One thing to note is if you do sing really quiet in certain other sections, you might want to turn it up so you don't get a whole lot of hiss and noise. If you have a really cheap interface, I will have some recommendations for interfaces and stuff at the end. And again, when it comes to dynamic microphones, you will need to turn them up a lot more. And if you do have a cheaper interface, you are going to get more noise with them. Depends on if it's going to be an issue. There's a lot of factors that play into that, but it's something to know. Now, the order I usually record parts of a song in, if I'm not doing it all the way through, and if you want to, that's always the best way. But if you need to go part by part, maybe you don't have the whole song figured out yet, I would start with the chorus, do a couple takes, then go back to the start of the song, sing as many takes until you get that, and then go back to the chorus. So the first chorus takes are kind of a warm-up, kind of making sure that you're not going to be singing too quietly or something when you start the song and then by the end it's like super different. So you can kind of start by getting the energy right, by trying the chorus a few times, then go back to the start and work your way through the song. So when I'm editing takes together, usually what I'll do is I'll make one track that is what I'm recording onto, and then I'll make a second track underneath it that's muted and duplicate that muted track a bunch of times and then drag each take down, and then I can just cut bits of those takes together onto a main track when I'm editing. That is a little bit outside the scope of this video, but I thought it would be good to mention. There are a lot more advanced features in different pieces of software that are stuff like track lanes, and those can definitely save you time if you really learn them, but I find that this most manual method works really well for me because I know that I can do it the same way no matter what software I happen to be using, because it's just very simple audio editing features. Another thing that you want to do while you're in the software that is super helpful is make a duplicate track that has the record monitoring on. You don't want to be record monitoring through your software. Try and get an interface that can let you directly monitor through it. That's going to work differently depending on the interface. But if you leave one track muted, that's the track you're recording on, and make another track that is monitoring, isn't muted, but it has a reverb plugin on it that is completely wet, none of the dry signal. If there's a mix knob on your reverb, put it on max, then turn that down and you can get some reverb in your headphones. Latency is not going to matter a ton when it comes to reverb, and it's going to be really helpful to make yourself feel like you sound really good by hearing some reverb in your headphones while you're singing. If you're singing a song that doesn't have super consistent rhythm, you're probably going to want to have that metronome on, especially if there's parts that drop out to just chords and you don't have a really good sense of the groove coming from drums in that part of the song. Having the metronome on in your headphones to make sure you're going to be coming in exactly where you want to be on the beat. You wouldn't think it would be a thing you have to mention, but I know some people really struggle, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this will make sure you never run into those kind of issues. Now, if you want my recommendations for what kind of equipment you should buy, I didn't want to just sit here for like 10 more minutes and spelling them out, so I'm going to have a link in the description to like a PDF or something that will have just some really solid recommendations at various price points of what I think you should get that you can just basically plug and play and record with. All right, those are all my tips. I know I kind of threw a lot of information at you in this video. Thanks so much for watching. If I did send this to you, please feel free to send me messages directly with any other questions you might have. And if you just stumbled across this, ask your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks.